Entering the atmosphere in T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast from OmegaMetroid.com. My name is Andy Spiteri, joined by Doom Crossing on this Remembrance Day, where we do remember all of the heroes that fought to keep our freedoms from fascism. So hopefully everyone did a moment of silence today in honor of those heroes, and we are here today to talk Metroid. We are a month, less than a month actually, away from Metroid Prime 4. So we're going to revisit some of the favorite bosses from the Metroid Prime series here. Doom, what's going on? How are you?
Pretty good. My schedule's been a little bit different this week. Typically I get Monday, Tuesday off, which is perfect for our recording schedule, but I had to switch it with my Saturday because I'm usually able to get my vacation days approved. This is one of the rare exceptions where I wasn't. But luckily, I found someone at my work who was kind enough to swap shifts with me. So we had to do a little bit of rejigging, but we're still recording the day before we release, so
Yeah,
no problems there. But we gotta say something pretty important first off before we start today's episode. So unfortunately,
how about this? Let me kick it off here. So
yeah,
released the Zelda cast yesterday, okay, and unfortunately, there have been reports, and this isn't new, like there's been a huge spending budget for a bunch of like ICE ads in various platforms, and Spotify and Apple Podcasts have taken this advertising money. And so long story short, Zelda cast released yesterday, and a bunch of people said that they heard some ICE ads, and obviously that is not what we're about here. So I went into our ad settings, tried to shut off what I thought might have been something that was like maybe getting the ICE ads. I'd always had no political ads turned on. However, still got some reports of ICE ads coming through. So now on the Zelda cast, on Omega Metroid podcast, on Virtual Theater, programmatic ads have just been turned off entirely. So cross fingers, there should be no more ads like that. I don't want any ad revenue coming from ICE ads. So if you see or hear any more ads like that, let me know. But though those have been shut off, and just wanted to, just make our stance on that known, which is fuck ICE. Sorry for the language.
yeah, absolutely. No, I'm certainly not apologizing. Certainly not apologizing. Fuck ice. I love ice in my drinks. Not in my communities though.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So I'm super sorry that people heard those ads on the Zelda cast. Obviously, like that wasn't something that we control. I hadn't heard that they would been coming through before, but I had heard that there was like all of these programmatic ads coming in. So that's been shut off. The ad revenue is paused, so that hopefully that is the last that you ever hear of those ads on this show or any show that like Doom and I are participating in.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that disturbed me yesterday when I was at work. Actually, I had to take a moment and make sure the ad settings were right.
I look forward to the day where all those thugs are unmasked and hopefully face justice.
Indeed. Yes, indeed. So yeah, just wanted to let everybody know that's where we're at. That's what we've done. And if you do like hear for any reason, like if you hear any other ads, like let me know. I think we've done everything that we can do to stop those, but please let me know, because that is not what this podcast or any of our podcasts is all about. So yeah. There it is, an unfortunate way to start off the podcast today. But I will say this. We're going to be talking about our top 10 bosses from the Metroid Prime subseries. And there's a better kind of ice coming through in one of my boss picks here today, okay? So we're going to try and turn it around here and talk about some better things. But yeah, obviously just, even going off of our discussion about Halo last week and how that series has kind of been bastardized to promote this racist and hateful group of thugs, like that's it's something that we just want to say off the top there, and for anybody that like heard this or listened to it, man, I'm sorry that you had to hear that, and yeah, no more ads for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I feel like most people are like pretty aware of like where we stand on the political spectrum. You know, we're pretty outspoken and vocal whenever we feel there's something that needs to be addressed. But yeah, in case it wasn't clear, yeah, we definitely do not stand with those monsters.
Yeah. All right. So that out of the way, we are marching towards Metroid Prime 4. The news is starting to come in hot and heavy. There was a new trailer, as we talked about last week, the Survive trailer. Pre-orders for EB Games in Canada. Things feel like they are really in motion, really starting to heat up here. And so we're going to be doing the same thing on the Omega Metroid podcast here. And I want to kind of break down a little bit of what our schedule is going to look like, basically for like the next couple of months. So we're going to be ranking all of our top 10 bosses from the Metroid Prime. I said the Metroid Prime trilogy, but I included Federation Force and Hunters in there. Depending on the amount of news coming out of the hands-on previews, which were going to be released on the 14th, next week's will either be kind of a show about that information, or we have some other ideas as well. After that, we're going to take a final look back, kind of a timeline at the development of Metroid Prime 4 from way back when it was announced up until December the 4th when it finally does release. And then in the week before, we're just going to talk about our final hopes, take some of your questions, and then it's on. The week after that, it's our first impressions for Metroid Prime 4. Week after that, kind of depending on how the game goes, but we'll kind of do, I think, like a first act, second act, third act bunch of episodes. So the first 3 episodes will be dedicated to that. We'll rank the bosses. We'll talk about the music. We'll talk about the story. We'll talk about the side quests. We'll talk about, take your questions. Talk about the areas. If there's DLC announced, we'll obviously focus in on that. So lots of content here coming for the next couple of months, and so very very exciting. I feel like I'm really ready for Metroid Prime 4. I gotta say, Doom, I've been playing Legend of Zelda Hyrule Warriors: Age of Imprisonment. And it has not scratched the itch at all for like a new Zelda game. So now I'm really like, man, like I can't wait for Metroid Prime 4 to hopefully really deliver in that way. So it's exciting times, very exciting times.
Yeah, meanwhile, in my neck of the woods, I'm on an ambitious journey to not just replay, but 100% the entire Metroid Prime trilogy. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that in time for Metroid Prime 4. I'm going to be honest. That's going to be a tough task with my work schedule, but I'm determined. And if anything, it's just going to make these last 3 weeks, weird to say that out loud. These last 3 weeks go by lickety split. We're almost done with Metroid Prime. I just finished getting X-Ray Visor last night, so I should be on my way to getting that done soon. Echoes, I feel like, is going to be the biggest time crunch out of the remaining 2 games, though.
Yeah, it's a long one for sure, and a tough one 100%. But yeah, that's going to make it fly by. So very exciting times as we really kind of get to the final stretch before this mythical game that was announced in 2018 finally comes
2017.
out. 2017, excuse me. So I mean, my goodness, 8 years later, and a different type of, like, this is not the first 8-year wait for a game that we've ever had. But this one does feel different because it felt like you knew that this was the destination. And we'll talk about this more on our episode, kind of looking back towards, where we started with Metroid Prime 4 and how we got to the end. But it really is a journey. The only thing that I can compare this to is like the wait for The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. To me, that's like the only comparable that I've had in my life, where it's like this game that's like went through so many twists and turns to finally get to a point where it's coming out. Feels pretty surreal. So yeah, I don't know about you, Doom, but I got my Metroid Prime 4 amiibo. These are like just spectacular looking amiibo, as they should be because they cost a lot. Okay, but the Viola Metroid amiibo, I think it might be the greatest amiibo that Nintendo has actually ever made. It just looks like absolutely spectacular, and I'm really excited for Silex to get here on December the 4th as well. So things are starting to come together. They're starting to come together, and what better way to get excited for the future than by honoring the past. And we are going to just jump right into it here and talk about our top 10 bosses from the Metroid Prime sub-series. And I'm going to say this, Doom. I've realized about myself, like, my top 10 can, like, change on the whim. Like, you could ask me today, tomorrow be a totally different answer. A month from now, definitely different answer. So I'm sure that we've done top 10 bosses before for, like, top 10 bosses for Prime 2 or Prime 3 or Prime just 1. This is going to completely contradict everything that we've ever talked about before, but I made my list this morning, and it's how I felt, and I'm going to run with it. I'm going to run with it, my God.
Yeah, I was about to say, likewise. So we just did an Echoes boss ranking not too long ago, and and spoiler alert, I literally was just assembling my list as Andy was talking there. So yeah, I appreciate you taking the helm there while I was able to like think clearly and write some of these out. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if I also have some inconsistencies with that boss ranking alone. So
and that's
yeah,
okay.
Exactly, and that's the beautiful thing about Metroid and just a lot of my interest in general. I talk about this a lot, but outside of Metroid Prime, I don't really have a favorite Metroid game, or at least like my next top 5 or 6 Metroid games after that are all just pretty interchangeable depending on my mood. And even Metroid Prime, which is my favorite game of all time, there's moments where I'm like, I'm not in the mood for a Metroid Prime. I'm in the mood for a Zero mission. I don't need the immersion or the atmosphere. I just want quick, tight, slick gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
And so really it just all depends on, where the sun's setting,
Yeah. Okay, well, all that being said, Doom, I think we should just get going here and start our list off. So instead of doing a definitive ranking, I think what we'll do, I'll just say my number 10. You say your number 10. We'll definitely have some of the same bosses. So I think unless it's like the number 1 pick, which I think there's going to be a point in our list where that does happen. We'll just save it. We'll just talk about it now. So if your number 8 is my number 4, we'll just talk about it then, unless it's like the first overall pick, in which case we'll save it for a little bit. That sound good?
This is pretty similar to what we did with our top 10 Switch games episode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. God, I can't even remember what I would have said for my top 10 Switch games now. Jeez.
Yeah, number 1, Kirby Forgotten Land, right?
I almost just choked on my steep tea. This man's trying to kill me on live air. Oh. Jeez.
I was going to ask you before we go into the top 10, much like the Switch episode, did you want to go into honorable mentions first? Because I do have 4 honorable mentions on my list.
Sure. Yeah. I don't have any prepared, but I could definitely, I think, throw out a couple of honorable mentions. I have like a couple that spring to mind. I'll start us off with probably the Parasite Queen should be an honorable mention. The first boss that you really see in 3D, very impressive, has a legacy now kind of outside of Metroid with Super Smash Bros. I think it's like, it's not a hard fight or a difficult fight, but it's pretty immersive. It's a nice tutorial battle. And it's not a top 10, but I think it is one that is worth mentioning. So yeah, fair point.
I think that's fair. I didn't put PQ on my honorable mentions, but I think that's a great pick for honorable mention. Like you said, in terms of boss complexity, it doesn't have too much going for it, but it teaches you the bare basics of not just Metroid Prime, but shooting mechanics to players who are probably very unfamiliar with first-person shooters, especially at a time where that format was still developing on consoles. The atmosphere, the creature design is incredible, the music is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a really it's very simple, it's basic, but it's done it in such a beautifully done way. And so I really think like it knows what its purpose is, and it does it perfectly.
Yeah. So yeah, go ahead with one of your honorable mentions. I've got one after this that I don't think anybody is going to agree with, but I'm going to say it anyways.
All right. Well, hey, you know what? If there's anything that Andy is known for, it's never having any controversial takes. So
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. I'm gonna continue with Metroid Prime because I'm playing that game right now, so this game is in my mind right now. My second honorable mention is gonna be, believe it or not, Flugra.
Yeah.
Which is a fight that I was considering on my top 10, but the more I remembered some of the bosses, it just didn't quite make the cut. But again, a really cool type of puzzle boss fight. Not your kind of traditional boss fight where you're like shooting for the weak point. But yeah, it's really cool the way that you stun it and you kind of just slowly take it down like
Mhm.
piece by piece. And then especially once you really start to know how to like abuse some of Metroid Prime's mechanics, there's like some really fun quick kill opportunities that I always love going for, particularly with the panels. Because what's great about the panels is that they're actually not physics based. So you think you have to get behind them, but you actually don't. And so what you can actually do is that while you're wailing on it, if you have a clear line of sight and you know how to aim, you can just fire a missile or a charge shot at any of those panels from any direction, and it'll still go down no matter what. And so, practicing your aim and getting that right and getting that quick kill is super satisfying on Flugra. On
Mhm.
top of it just being like a really creative puzzle boss.
I agree. I didn't put that on my list either, but that was another one I thought of for honorable mentions. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Um, I didn't put this boss on my list, but I am going to shout out Chaika from Metroid Prime 2. I think it's like a really cool fight, and I don't know if you have it on your list or not, but it's like a boss that's really like a 2-in-1 kind of boss, and I think it's very like the second part in particular is very frantic, the way that you're grapple beaming across, and like it's a tough fight, but I think that it's like a tough but like fun fight, you know?
Yeah, so I actually do have Chica on my list, so I'll save that for
Save
once
it,
we
yeah.
get to that portion of the list. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, my second pick is also from Metroid Prime, and this honestly was probably the biggest shock to my system. It's funny because behind the scenes we were talking about another boss that we're probably both going to end up talking about, saying that I don't know if this one makes the top 10, and it was this boss versus Thordis, and I thought Thordis was going to win it out, but the more I thought about it, I had to go with this other fight instead. But I think the thing with Thordis is prior to Metroid Prime Remastered, I probably wouldn't have thought that highly of Thordis, but replaying, Metroid Prime for the first time in its remastered form, and ultimately the first time I'd replayed Metroid Prime at that time in, ages, really gave me a brand new appreciation for Thordis that I hadn't felt like since I had originally played Metroid Prime for the first time. There's something, I don't know what it was about that remastered setting, but there was just something about it, especially on hard mode, where I felt the intensity of the fight. Like it really did feel like, two tanks just wailing and going at each other, like a real battle of attrition almost.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't think I quite feel the same way that I did when I first played Prime Remaster, but a lot of that still in my most recent playthrough stuck with me. So yeah, Thordis really, again, another killer piece of boss music by Kenji Yamamoto. A really cool fight. I think the big thing holding Thordis back from the top 10 is I kind of forgot how non-diverse his attacks are. He has not that many attacks, and they're very good attacks. They're really good attacks that will reposition you on the map and will change up your playstyle. But he only has so many, and I kind of wish there was just a little bit more, especially in like the second or third phase, where he doesn't really add any new attacks to that. I feel like that would have been enough maybe to get him in the top 10.
Listen, I'm gonna jump in here quickly because you never miss an opportunity to give me grief about how I pronounce something. What the heck is Thordis? Thardis.
Oh, you mean Stone Talus?
Thardis with an A, isn't it? Right?
That's what I said, Thordis.
All right, let's move on. I have two more ones, and I want to move quickly on them because I do have a top 10 here, but I'm going to. This guy almost made the list, but I decided to be sentimental instead and leave it out. I do want to shout out Omega Ridley. I think that's a really fun boss fight. I think it's a really good Ridley boss fight. I really like the way that the X-ray visor is implemented. And it's like a really cool setting, cool sound, and it's like closer together, like which is kind of what I wanted from the Meta Ridley fight in Metroid Prime, where like there is some flying around still, but it's not as egregious, I don't think. So Omega Ridley is my second to last honorable mention.
Omega Ridley is definitely a big one right there. Yeah, pretty much agree with you there. Yeah, we were talking about, I can't remember when we were talking about it, but you mentioned that there was like, almost like kind of a fusion resemblance to him,
Yeah,
which I
yeah,
had never
yeah.
thought of before. Yeah, I can't remember what episode we were talking about that on now, but I feel like it was pretty recent. And I was like, yeah, now that you say that, there's a little bit of a fusion design similarities there, which I really dig. Yeah, really fun boss battle, and also one that like really utilizes tons of items and abilities in your kit, which I always really appreciate out of a boss
Hmm.
battle. You're using your beam upgrades, you're using your missiles, you're using the grapple lasso, you're using the X-ray visor. There's a ton of diversity in that fight. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely a huge fan of that.
Okay, I have one
My
last
next
honorable. Or I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. You're right. I cut you off like a true villain. I'm sorry, Doom. Go ahead.
Yeah, nah, you're good. You're good. Yeah, so I got two more on my list, so that's actually kind of perfect. So,
Okay.
my next honorable mention is technically not a mainline boss fight. It's a mini boss fight, and man, it's
Okay.
one that I love. It's one that I love so much, and I really wanted to just include it on the top 10, just to be controversial and be like, Doom put a mini boss in his top 10. What's wrong with him? But I just couldn't in good faith, despite my absolute love for the caretaker class drone in a Sanctuary Fortress. It's a mini boss, um, and it's such a cool way to use
Yeah.
the morph ball and demonstrate it with the boost ball capabilities. Very simple fight, three phases. You're just on a rotating circular spider ball track, avoiding these electrical arms that are trying to knock you off. And then you use the boost ball to jump into its weak point every single time it exposes it. If you do fall to the floor, you only have a limited time to get back up before it electrocutes you, which not that big of a deal in the Prime trilogy with the spring ball, but in the
Hmm.
original Prime 2, where you're relying on bombs, definitely adds a lot of extra tension there, which I really enjoy. Yeah, really cool boss fight. This, I'll be honest, this one is really close to hitting number 10 for me, but like I said, I couldn't do it in good faith.
I would have been totally okay with that in top 10 actually. Yeah, you're right. That's a great boss fight. It's one that I never really think of, but like it is it's really fun like while you're doing it and like it lasts longer than like some official boss fights as too like as well that have like metered, health bars and stuff like that. So I actually think that there's nothing wrong with that pick there. Okay. My last one here is from Doom knows exactly what this is. It's from Metroid Prime Federation Force. So we are going to rank bosses from Hunters and Federation Force. Not that there is a lot that really challenge to get into the top 10 on either of our list, but I really like this boss, and I had an amazing time with the Omega Metroid Marathon fighting this boss. This boss is called Chironon, and it's from level 14 of Metroid Prime Federation Force. It's called Tremor. And this boss is kind of like a big ball, and eventually these like tentacles come out of it, and you've got to like shoot its armor off and then shoot the weak point inside. It's really fun. Like it's Metroid Prime Federation Force at basically its full potential, like for what it can be. And it's like far and away the best boss fight in the game. It's one that like is pretty intense multiplayer, but like pretty intense solo as well, and just kind of like a good boss fight. And like granted, like the bar is lower because it's in Federation Force. Like if this was in Metroid Prime 2 or 3, it probably wouldn't stick out as much, but just because it's like the one kind of beacon of light in that game, like I did want to shout it out because I do have a really fun time, and I will say my Omega Metroid Marathon memories definitely influence my pick as well.
Which is fair because, as I've said many times, that was my favorite segment of the Omega Metroid Marathon was the
Yeah.
Federation Force segment. So yeah, I think that's totally fair, absolutely. And to be fair, Federation Force in general is going to be a lot more fun with friends, which we were not definitely not doing that solo.
Yeah.
That probably would have severely impacted the enjoyment of that. But yeah, I think an absolutely fair pick.
What's
All
your
right, I
last
got
one?
one more. I got one more, and honestly, even above the caretaker class drone, this one might have been the real fight for number 10. My final honorable mention, Dark Samus 3, the final act of Metroid Prime 2 Echoes. Really killer sequence, but as a boss fight, obviously, There's not a lot going for it. It's mostly just the
Yeah.
atmosphere. It's the tension of that escape timer. Again, really cool sequence. Like for me, like it elevates that final sequence tremendously, but that's working as a unit with the Emperor Ing on its own. Still very cool, but just not quite enough to crack the top 10.
I would agree with that. Like it definitely does enough to differentiate itself, but I mean, like it is the third time that you fought Dark Samus here, and the timer does add some tension, but I didn't have it in my top 10 either personally. So yeah, I'm okay with it just not making the crack, but cinematically, like it's very cool. Like the way Dark Samus looks is killer.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely my favorite Dark Samus design, without question.
Yeah, I think so. I think I would agree with that. Okay, well, let's do this thing then. The top 10 boss fights, and by the way, like we said, like this can change on a dime. And to say like these aren't necessarily the 10 best boss fights that you can do in the Metroid Prime trilogy. Like a lot of the bosses I just named are going to be better than the first boss I mentioned here. But hey, you know what? We'll shake it up a little bit and try some new names on this top 10 list. And yeah, would you like to start us off, Doom, or would you like me to start us off?
Sure, I don't mind kicking things off. So, yeah, we just talked about Metroid Prime 2, and we're gonna go right back into Metroid Prime 2 at a very, very different point of the game. We're starting off Duminal's number 10 of the top Metroid Prime trilogy bosses with a Morbus from Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, the guardian of the Aegon Waste Dark Energy Temple. I'm always a big fan of large bosses in Metroid that just kind of tower over you, and I think a Morbus is a fantastic example of it. Starts off it starts off with a couple of really fun phases. So each phase is kind of like Flugra in a sense, where it's like each phase starts adding more and more, and that's kind of how a Morbus works. But instead of like panels, it's more sections of like this giant worm creature that are constantly digging in the sand. The first phase isn't too bad, but once you start getting like 2 or 3 in the arena at a time, you have a lot more areas to keep track of, and sometimes they can pop up underneath you if you're not paying attention. There's another one that might be just off screen that's already in the air and about to land on you.
Yeah.
So it really implements like a lot of verticality into the fight, which you don't always get with Metroid bosses, but I think it adds like a very unique element here. And then of course in the second phase it turns into Dark Amorbus, and so you actually do start wailing on it and dealing damage to it until you break its armor off. And of course my favorite thing is when Metroid bosses implement the morph ball functionality. There's some better examples we'll talk about later, but even just the small one in this one, where you just go into morph ball, drop some bombs into it. This is pre-Kraid Metroid Dread as well, so Echoes did this little trick first. But yeah, always a big fan of utilizing morph ball combat in boss fights, and yeah, Morbus I think is a very solid conclusion to the Aegon arc.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that it was like a fine boss fight. I didn't put it on my top 10 list. The ones that I focused on were a little bit more like, I guess, like personal boss fights for the most part. But it's a really great like fight when you're actually in it. And like, yeah, I quite like using the morph ball. And it's got that kind of Dune like quality to it, doesn't it? Where you got all these worms and everything is looking pretty cool. Okay, so like I said, I decided to be sentimental with my number 10 here. And the reason why I wanted to open this up to not only the trilogy, but Hunters and Federation Force as well, is because I kind of thought that I was going to sneak in a Hunters boss. And I will say this, Hunters bosses, in general, they're not that good. It's a pretty big weak point of the game. But I am happy to say that the one kind of exception, and again, I'm not going to pretend this is an amazing boss fight, and I'm not going to pretend like, since we're like 3 weeks away from Metroid Prime 4, this isn't influencing me, but the best boss fight in that game is the Silex boss fight, which I have ranked at number 10. It's the best boss fight for a couple of reasons. One, it's actually kind of challenging, unlike Candon or whoever else you fought at that point. I think you fought everybody but Noxus and Trace at that point in the game. So it's kind of challenging. Number 2, there's actually like a couple of set pieces that happen in the battle. Like you start off in the area and then you need to chase Silex, and then you eventually get into this like cool for Metroid Prime Hunters, like this cool looking open area where you can see like the stars above you, and then the Delano 7 comes in and is also firing on you. Silas's shock coil is going crazy, and this is the one time, like generally speaking, I think that Metroid Prime Hunters, the boss battles don't require strategy. It's just an AI bot versus you, so it's just kind of like you shoot it. And I feel like for most of the time, that's kind of a detriment to the game. But this time, I feel like it actually kind of works, because you've got Silex frantically, seemingly able to hit you from anywhere. You've got the Delano 7 raining on you. You've got kind of a cool background. And I was feeling a bit romantic, because I think that we're going to have, obviously, a better Silex boss fight I'm anticipating in Metroid Prime 4. So I did want to shout out Silex and Metroid Prime Hunters for this one time, because hey, you know what? I think that as far as a hunter battle goes, this is definitely top tier, and I think it's the best boss fight in Metroid Prime Hunters. Like I actually think it's probably the best boss fight by like a bit in the game. So yeah, Metroid Prime Hunters, Silex is on the list.
Yeah, I definitely don't disagree. It's definitely the best boss fight in Hunters. I don't really think that's debatable. But at the same time though, I understand the romanticism.
Is it top 10?
And I say, and listen, I am saying this, of the two of us, I'm definitely probably the person that goes out of their way to defend Hunters a bit more. I have a genuine like appreciation, not just for the multiplayer, but that single player as well, despite, its very, very massive flaws.
Yeah.
But even me, I can't put Silex in the top 10. All of my honorable mentions go above the Silex fight. But like you said, though, it's certainly not a bad fight, which by Hunters standards is actually really good, because most of the fights in Metroid Prime Hunters single player are just straight up bad. The Silex fight is not that. It's actually like a really fun fight.
Yeah.
Definitely, and you can definitely tell, even as far back as Hunters, before like he became this fascinating character to Tanabe, and eventually Metroid Prime 4, like you can tell even back then there was definitely like this fix on Silex, because they did put so much extra time into this encounter than they did with any of the other Hunters. So like pretty early on, like at least in hindsight, it feels pretty obvious to me that like there was always something special, at least from that main development team, about Silex in particular. And yeah, I think it shows in that gameplay as well.
Yep. I mean, like, listen, if this fight was in Metroid Prime 1 or 2 or 3, it would probably be the worst fight in the game. But for being the best fight in Metroid Prime Hunters, let's do it. You know what? Why not? Let's just do it. Silex at number 10, baby.
All right. So going to number 9. And yeah, this is the one... This is the one that I initially didn't think was going to make the list. But yeah, it's number 9, not even number 10. Rundus from Metroid Prime 3.
Wow.
Ice Baby himself. Yeah, this fight, and who knows? Like I said earlier, I still have to replay Metroid Prime 2 and 3. Maybe my opinions will change again, but as of right now, I'm just going off my last playthrough from a couple of years ago, and I think Rundus like really demonstrates like how effective the hunters are in this game, despite being pretty flat caricature characters. I think in spite of that, like these fights, really do like serve their purpose, not just being like really fun gameplay segments, but yeah, giving a little bit more of an emotional crux into that Metroid Prime story, especially like, like despite them being characters, you do feel bad, having
Totally.
to put them down, especially the end of the fight when, you see Rundus's grisly end in particular. Like I remember playing that like, as a kid, and that just shell shocked me. I was just like, whoa, this is different. And yeah, and then again, the boss music is just absolutely incredible. Like you still have those Kenji Yamamoto isms, but you also have a little bit more of that that neoclassical flair that Yamamoto introduces into Prime 3. You have a little bit of electric guitar, which we're starting to see a lot more of Metroid Prime 4, but like it feels like especially impactful in this game, because it almost feels it's electric guitar, but it's not badass. It's like very somber and like very emotional, despite the actual riffs wanting to evoke that. Like it's contrasted against these very atonal synths that just make it just really just enhance the dourness of it. And so yeah, Rundus Metroid Prime 3 is going into number 9 for me. Fantastic fight.
So yeah, Rundus was actually my number 7 on my list. And kind of like what I mean when I'm saying that I was like feeling sentimental a little bit, because like I think like there are better boss fights than Rundus, but kind of like what like you kind of nailed it, where it's like, man, this guy, which like you do kind of build like a little bit of rapport with at the beginning of the game, like you care for, particularly Rundus, since he rescues you from the shaft with Meta Ridley. It's like you fight this fight and you're kind of hoping like there's got to be some way to rescue Rundus, to like turn him back so that at the end of the game he fights on my side. And as you see with all of the hunters, like you don't do that. Like unfortunately, the best you can do is release them and let them die peacefully from the corruption that is occurring with them. So I think like almost for the story implications, for like the after scene, is why he placed highly on mine. But I mean, like, also, like, it's a pretty sweet fight, too. Like, you're right, the music is cool. Rundus himself looks, like, awesome when he's zipping around, like Iceman from X-Men on his, like, little ice ramp. Like, it's a very cool fight. I think, like, sometimes, like, actually, like, damaging Rundus could be a little bit better. Like, because you kind of just go up and, like, he eventually just like sits and you just kind of shoot him, and then when he's doing his like flying around with the ice or whatever, that I think could be a little bit cooler if like you could engage with him a little bit more when he's like zipping around. But regardless, I think it's like still a really cool fight. It's a cool setting, cool music, and a very tragic end for like this character that you've kind of like grown attached to as far as Metroid characters go. Like, because it's really like, keep in mind, like Rundus is like really, Baby Metroid aside, like one of the first like friends that you see in the Metroid series that actually is like sticking up for you. It kind of been like the Baby Metroid, maybe Umos, and like Rundus. And so to see Rundus fall, I thought was a sad moment.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call Umos like a friend, more like a friendly character. Rundus genuinely like he has some camaraderie with like I remember like the elevator scene when you get to the elevator and everyone's giving you crap like, yo, what's taking you so long, Samus? And Rundus is like, hey, come on guys, like we got the best bounty hunters with us, we got this, man. Unfortunately they did not in fact have that, but yeah, Rundus, number 9 for me, number 7 for you.
Yeah. Well, let me keep this trend going, because number 9 for me is another hunter, and that hunter's name is Gore. And I think that this fight is like super awesome. I love that I love how the fight starts off, where like Gore just picks up your ship and is like, this is a cool little monster truck that we've got here. I really like the way that like Gore is put together. It's kind of like this big shield which can like come apart for weaponry. I think that the like fight itself is really strong. And exact same thing that I said about Rundus, you can apply to Gore as well. Like, it's like Gore was outwardly like seemingly the nicest of the hunters to you, seemed like the gentlest soul. So this one was one again that really, it's quite sad to have to, I hate to say, like put Gore out of his misery here a little bit. So all that same kind of logic applies to Gore, and I just think that the fight itself is just kind of like a cool heavyweight battle, which is like a little bit more of a, like, some boss fights are like you just go hard after a weak point, or like you just go, and this was like a defensive pick your opening kind of fight, which I think is like kind of cool as well. So yeah, Rundus kind of took most of the words out of my mouth for how I feel about this fight, but I did want to shout out Gore for number 9.
Yeah, and I think I pretty much agree with everything you said there. Especially to me, I feel like the highlight of that is, kind of the lead up to the fight itself. Like, you're going through Skytown, and all of a sudden you just hear this transmission, unknown entity approaching Starship, engaging defense mode. And immediately right there, you already know, oh no,
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah.
And because it's like it's the first time, I guess technically Fusion we see, Samus's ship blow up, but like that's different. Like this is the first time we've seen like actually no, even Zero Mission. I am a liar. Don't listen to me at all. But
This
no,
feels
like,
different than Zero Mission though. Like
Yeah,
it's someone like
yeah.
actually like on your ship. Like Zero Mission is like a cutscene that you see, and
Yeah.
it's just kind of it's this one feels more personal. Like you're actually like someone's
Yeah.
like encroaching on your space, like your
Yeah.
sacred
It's-
ship.
Yeah, it's happening during gameplay. The landing sites and the save stations. The game has set those up as like the safe points at this area where nothing bad can happen. And the game is
Yeah.
basically telling you something terrible is happening to your ship right now. And then finally when you do and before you even get to the fight, you can see out the window and he's just wailing on your beautiful ship, and before he eventually just straight up chucks it at you. Honestly, insane that ship was still able to fly momentarily to safety.
Indeed. Yes.
But yeah, but to me, I feel like that's the highlight, is not the fight itself, but just kind of that introductory and race to the ship itself. The fight itself is still really good. And taking out Gore, it's still sad, but I definitely felt a lot more camaraderie towards Rundus. Rundus definitely gets, a bit more time to shine. Like you mentioned, he literally rescues you from one of the best moments in the game. So I definitely felt like Rundus was a bit more effective, but like Gore, that's not to say Gore was ineffective.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I think of the 3 Hunter fights, I think Gore's battle theme is easily the weakest of the 3. I think Rundus and Gandrada both have pretty solid themes, whereas Gore's to me, like Gore's theme is kind of neoclassical music implemented poorly into Metroid. That's kind of what I think of when I think of like, oh, I don't really want orchestral music in my Metroid, is when I think of that Gore theme. It just kind of sounds a little bit generic, doesn't really sound very Metroid. It's cinematic presentation over something that really feels like it's coming from the environment or the characters themselves. Whereas I definitely, even though those elements are still present in Gandrada and Rundus, I do still think they have those codified Metroid elements that make it feel so unique.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. Like I don't think that the theme is like anything to really go crazy over, but and I wouldn't really disagree either that it's like the preamble and the post that make the fight special. But again, you'll see like the way that my list is constructed is, like I said, it focuses more on like personal enemies and it's sentimental. So we'll leave it at that for now. So number 9 for me is Gore on the list.
All right.
Okay, so number 8, Doom.
Number 8, we are the Omega Metroid podcast, so I think it's only appropriate we have an Omega boss at some point in this list. So
Don't tell me.
Let's talk about the Omega Pirate from Metroid Prime.
Can I just quickly interject? Do you want to hear my number 8?
Is
The
it
Omega Pirate from Metroid Prime, baby. How do you like that?
Heck yeah. It was meant to be, folks. It was meant to be. Yeah, let's talk about this boss. This boss fight is so awesome. Which is really cool because allegedly this is what was supposed to replace Metacrade. Which obviously I would love to see Metacrade, but like, man, what we got was no slouch. This is such a fun fight. One of my favorite boss themes in the game, actually. I love I love especially the middle interjecting section where it starts arpeggiating the synths, the it sounds so creepy. I love it, and it really works well with like all the Phazon corruption happening. But yeah, this really feels, Phazon Mines in general like really does feel like such a skill check, and like I feel like this boss fight perfectly encapsulates that on your first playthrough. Like, he's intimidating. It's genuinely a hard fight before you really start to get it down if you're playing this game for the first time. But once you do start to master it and start to really get an idea of like Metroid Prime's quirks and how to abuse the mechanics, there's also some of my favorite quick kill opportunities in the game, even more so than Flugra. In particular, instantly power bombing off all the armor and then doing getting his full health bar down in a one cycle while he's recharging his armor. So like regardless whether or not, you're struggling and the fight is tough or whether you've mastered it, like I feel like to me like that is what makes a boss fight so magical, is that even when it becomes quote unquote easy, it's still fun to master and perfect. And I think Omega Pirate is such a fantastic example of that in motion.
I just think it's like a cool fight, like that
Yeah.
sounds like so trite, but like you roll in, it's this giant arena. You know that something is going to go down there, and when you walk in the room, you can see the Omega Pirate, and like the lead up to the room as well has been telling you like there is an Omega Pirate that you need to dispatch. You walk in the room, you've got this ginormous Mama Jama who looks absolutely incredible in Metroid Prime Remastered too. Just like looks so good. The Phazon in Metroid Prime Remastered, I think, looks like just amazing. And so you go into this room. It's this hulking pirate that has all these spores around him. It looks awesome. It's an awesome boss fight. It makes use of your X-ray visor. You've got all of the different pirates that are brought into the fight to kind of distract you. So like if you want, you can switch utility and switch like your beams, take them out, get health pickups. If you also want, you can just power bomb them. If you really know what you're doing, yeah, you can do the quick kill, or at least like the very damaging portion anyways. I just think it's like a really cool fight. The music is awesome, like the setting is awesome. It's one that I just like always really look forward to when I go to this section of the game. And for not for nothing, but like after the fight is over, and when Omega Pirate falls on you, you get the best suit, arguably,
Yes.
in like Metroid Prime. In Metroid, really. Like I would put the Phazon
It's
suit.
my number one.
Yeah, I'd put it against anything out there. Like, so I think it's kind of got like all those things that you're looking for, and like I feel like the fight itself is like challenging enough, but familiar enough to like some of the elite pirates that you face. So, like you're not totally out of your depth, but it's definitely a step up. And I like the idea if you're playing it kind of the traditional way, like you gotta pick off like all of these limbs to finally get to the weak point. So it's just like a really, really cool fight. And I can't say enough about like the design of Omega Pirate in Metroid Prime Remastered. I just think it looks so good.
It's such a killer design. The original Metroid Prime version is also killer as well. But yeah, like most things in Metroid Prime, like
Yeah.
my goodness, like the extra detail that they put into that is just jaw dropping.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I love this fight. There's also a couple other things as well. So this is gonna sound weird, but so in the original Metroid Prime, during that opening cutscene where he breaks open the stasis tank, there's a very subtle frame drop where the game will like very briefly go to 30 FPS. That doesn't happen in Prime Remastered, and I actually kind of prefer the original one with the frame drop because it emphasizes the impact when he destroys the stasis tank a little more. Again, this is like the nitpickiest of nitpicks, and it's like obviously a physical limitation more than anything that was just addressed in remastered. But I actually do kind of like that frame drop when that happens to emphasize just like the massive impact of this hulking beast destroying the stasis tank. So I wanted to shout that out. And another thing I wanted to shout out as well is a piece of music that really goes underappreciated in my opinion, and it's actually low key one of my favorite pieces of music in Metroid Prime. It's not just the Omega Pirate theme, but the theme that plays before that when you first enter Elite Quarters where you fight him. It's one of my favorite ambient pieces in all of Metroid, and it utilizes what's called a tritone, which is also referred to as the Devil's Third. It's basically a quote unquote evil piece of like musical notes put together that are all spaced apart together. And there's a very subtle one at the end of the piece before it loops, and it's so subtle and it sounds absolutely incredible. So yeah, absolutely love that ambient piece of music that never gets any love. I'm gonna give it some love right now.
There you go. There you go. Okay, so my number 7 we already talked about for Rundus, and my number 8 was Omega Pirate as well. So we're back to you, Doom, for number 7.
All right. Well, we alluded to it earlier. My number 7 is Chica from Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, however it's supposed to be pronounced.
I'm gonna make the official declaration. It's Chica. That's how we're doing it here. Okay.
Like the thing with me is I see the double Ys, and the first thing that I think of is Kashyyyk from Star Wars. Although I think that one has 3 Ys, not 2. But that's off topic. This is such a cool boss fight. And I love how very different each phase is, because like some boss fights, you can see kind of the parallels between the two phases where it subtly goes from one to another. I love just how vastly unique each phase of the fight is and how well constructed each one is. It almost feels like two different boss fights kind of combined together, but they're both two really good boss fights combined together, and that's what stands out to me. You start off with this really creepy and ambient slow burn, with the initial fight, and at this point you don't really fight too many water bosses either in the Metroid Prime series, and so it's a unique take of having this boss swimming around you. I like the mechanic.
You forgot
of it.
the great Alpha Block boss fight, Doom.
Well, well, technically you do have the whatchamacallit, the gravity boost at that time, so it's technically underwater, but you're not really utilizing those underwater mechanics. This is one where it's like actually using the water as a weapon, and it's a really creative attack because it exposes its weak point by jumping up, but then also by jumping up it creates this massive splash, which with the dark ether water is still damaging to your suit at this point in time. And so actually that's like a really clever way to like do an attack while also finding like a really cool in-universe way to expose a weak point. It's not just, it doesn't feel gamey. It feels like a natural, like, oh yeah, that actually makes sense how this creature that's trying to attack you is also exposing its weak point. So I get a kick out of that. Eventually, like, it'll like actually go to the surface and try to like, lick you up and like pull you in, and then you kind of have to gamble with that, like, oh, do I want to get pulled in and get damage but also have the opportunity to pump it full of more damage? And there's like a really cool like little dance and risk versus reward there. And then the second phase, you just have this really cool flying fight with the adult. You really get some cool use out of the new grapple beam features in Prime 2, where and they actually mention a little bit of this in the visual retrospective, but they mentioned how Prime 2 now you can use your charge beam while grappling, which you couldn't in Metroid Prime 1, and it's actually like a pretty important piece of this fight, where you're going to want to charge super missiles for damaging some of the weak points on the Chico when you're trying to stun it. You also get to use the seeker missiles to if you want to, once its full weak points are exposed, you can use your seeker missiles if you want to take them all out at once, which is a little bit riskier because if you're too slow, then it'll leave that stun state. So again, a really cool piece of risk versus reward there. And then the Dark Chica fight, where you just get to unleash like all sorts of damage onto it with your light beam. So yeah, really fun fight all around. And much like a Morbus, a really fantastic conclusion to the Torvus Bog.
Yeah, I think it's a really fun. I mean, like, this boss fight, I feel like is probably. I mean, it's definitely better than Silex. It's probably better than Gore as well. The only reason I didn't put on is just because it's like kind of a monster instead of like someone you have a personal connection with. But like I said earlier, there's definitely some franticness to this boss fight that I think really goes along well with it, particularly like when you're grappling and shooting and like the seeker missiles that you use. It's just like a really involved boss fight. I might say, and we'll talk about this with another boss fight, it's probably a little bit long for what it is, but that's probably the only one of the bad things that you could say about it, because other than that, I think it's a really like fun boss fight, lots of frantic energy there. So yeah, I didn't quite have Chica on my list, but if this are all things being equal, like the top 10 best boss fights, it probably would be, because it's a really strong fight again. So well, Doom, you're actually up again, because now we're going to move on to number 6, because we know what my number 7 was. And now, at least on my list, now we're moving into like some of the heavy hitters. I do feel like there is a divide between 6 and 7 on my list. So kick us off.
All right, man. We're just we're just doing the Metroid Prime trilogy over here on my end. Just 1, 2,
and that's
3,
okay. Like, I mean, to be honest, like
4.
We knew that like there's not going to be a lot of contenders from Federation Force or or Hunters on this list. Like, Hunters, I think, has some of the worst boss fights in the series. It might be the game with weakest boss fights, to be honest.
Hmm. Yeah, for me, I don't really from Omega Pirate onward, I don't really think there's too much of a divide. Although I will say, like, once we get into like the top three, top four, actually no, probably top five are all like really close together now that I'm looking at it again.
Okay.
But we're not quite there yet. But I still think we have a criminally underrated heavy hitter coming up, one that both you and I absolutely adore, but is quite notorious in the community. I actually have a funny story. So this boss right here, there's another friend of mine in a completely different server. He is playing the Metroid Prime trilogy for the first time and loving it. But like most people, he hates and despises this boss. And honestly, I get it. I totally understand. But
Let me guess.
I just can't.
This infinitely difficult boss, the Power Bomb Guardian.
Yes, yeah, the Power Bomb Guardian, 100%.
I knew it.
Straight from Tanabe's mouth. No, no. Obviously, this is number 6 is obviously the Spider Guardian, a boss that I hold dear, a boss that I just get an absolute kick out of. I totally understand why it's not everyone's cup of tea, and honestly, they're probably right to a degree. But I kind of enjoy the cruelty and the unfairness of this fight. I really do just get a kick out of creative morph ball usage in boss fights, and this really is kind of the full pinnacle of it. It's like, hey, what if we did an entire boss fight that's fought in morph ball mode? You get a little bit of that with the caretaker drone, which weirdly enough is after the Spider Guardian fight. I feel like it would have made more sense actually. Well, actually no, because
I think it was good
Spider
to
Ball.
do this first. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, this really does feel like it on full display, where it's like this multi-phased fight where you're whereas unlike the caretaker, which is pretty over quickly, this you're in this for the long haul. This is a gauntlet, and the save point is very far away. So when you die, you have a lot of run backing to do. But yeah, I absolutely love this fight. It's also, in my opinion, just way easier in Trilogy with
totally.
With the spring ball. Though I will say proudly on stream for the marathon, I did it only using bombs. So definitely that's my preferred way to do it. I love that cruelty and the extra challenge of this fight. And yeah, I just think this is one of the most creative Metroid fights like ever made in general, not just in the Prime trilogy. And for me, it sticks the landing. I understand why it doesn't for most people, but this is my list, so it's going on number 6.
So number 6 on my list is the Spider Guardian. We're on the same wavelength here today. I think this fight is fantastic. I really love the Spider Guardian fight. I love that it's different. I love that it's challenging. I love that it's like a little bit of a troll with like the way that you can only scan it before you go in. It's like Metroid Prime 2 needed to be different than Metroid Prime 1 in so many ways, and this is the type of boss fight I feel like that's very different. It's kind of like it's similar to Flagra, where it's like a puzzle boss fight, and I just think that like there's so much cool like mechanics in this fight, and like yes, I get that it's challenging, and yes, trying to double bomb jump can definitely be tough, especially on those sloped like platforms that you have to do it on, but I mean, like, I think it's just like a boss fight that's like such a cool idea, and like, shouldn't you want to be challenged a little bit? So I quite like this boss fight as well. I think that just the setting is cool too. Like, you've got all like the neon kind of track lights and stuff like that with like the spider tracks and stuff. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this. I also did this the last time I played Metroid Prime 2. I played it on Dolphin, which obviously doesn't have the jump ball or the spring ball there, so I also did this with the old school method, and it really isn't like that bad, but it definitely is a lot more manageable playing Metroid Prime Trilogy. So I really hope that they do more like fights kind of this ilk, where like you're not just Samus fighting something, like you're in Morph Ball or you're on Viola or you're on whatever. I really enjoyed this one, and I think it is, like you said, criminally underrated. Because yeah, I think it's one of the most creative boss fights in the game.
I don't know if we're gonna get a morph ball fight, because we didn't really get that in Prime 3. We had a couple moments where you can use the morph ball, but it's definitely toned down compared to Prime 2. I'd be stunned if we didn't get some sort of Viola fight
Yeah.
in Metroid Prime. I feel like there has to be at least one like big meaty boss fight where you're primarily using the bike.
So yeah, number 6 on my list, Spider Guardian. One of you know what? This is one of the great Metroid Prime 2. Metroid Prime 2 has a lot of boss fights, and this is one of the great ones in the game. So yeah, that's what I got. No Powerbomb Guardian, unfortunately, on my list, as challenging as that was.
Yeah, Powerbomb Guardian was just too challenging for me to make this list, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay, number 5, Doom. Back to you.
All right, number 5. So 5 and upward, we're like in the 10 out of 10 bangers now. These are just like absolute. This is the absolute cinema of Metroid Prime here, and let's just get things kicked off. It's been a while since we visited Metroid Prime 3. It's the Meta Ridley shaft, baby. I'll just be straight up. This is the best fight in Metroid Prime 3. I love the Meta Ridley fight dearly. To me, this is like, it's technically not the opening tutorial boss that goes to the Berserker Pirate, but yeah, like to me, this is like the penultimate like introductory style Metroid boss. Like it's really got everything you need. It teaches you about the game's mechanics and the aiming system like in a setting. It's intense with not your typical countdown timer, but instead like the literal longest shaft ever. Like it feels like this is going to the planet's core as you fall down. It's incredibly cinematic, and the fight itself, it's incredibly fun. Like it nails it on every single front. It's one of the most memorable parts of Metroid Prime 3 for a reason. Like it's an incredible set piece. You and I, and Dak as well, we've all absolutely praised this fight on numerous iterations of the podcast, and yeah, to this day it absolutely stands the test of time, and a cool Lord of the Rings inspiration as well.
Totally. I have this higher on my list, actually. I have it at number 3. I think it's like such a strong boss fight, like the coolest Ridley fight, I think, like hands down in the trilogy. Yeah, like what more do you want? You've got the cool theme, you've got a great gimmick, there's a sense of urgency, a sense of danger, a sense of like kind of that claustrophobia that really serves Metroid well. I think like this is kind of like more so the frantic pace. It's got a frantic pace that is similar to Super Metroid for me, actually. And it's kind of what I wanted a little bit out of the Meta Ridley fight in Metroid Prime, which didn't make my list. Even though that fight's not a great boss fight, but it does have a lot of like cool cinematics behind it. But this one to me, I just feel like is on such another level. I think it's so fun. Obviously, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. I'm like, this is clearly inspired by Gandalf and the Balrog, so like that also hits for me. I actually debated ranking this at number 2 on my list, and I moved it down to number 3. But that's kind of how strongly I think of this boss fight. Like I just think that it's like really an all-timer and is like really unlike anything else that you have ever had in Metroid before. And I'm actually kind of like hopeful that we're going to get something maybe similar with like a Viola boss fight, because I could totally see you in like an enclosed shaft F-Zero style, like doing a boss fight like that. So I'm kind of crossing my fingers for the return to this. But yeah, I have this on number 3. I think this fight is exceptional.
Yeah, I also love the detail in the fight where Meta Ridley is trying to stop his fall by like clawing and winging at like the sides, but he's too heavy, so it's not working. But you just see all these like sparks just flying up, and it also is one of the attacks because the sparks will like loosen pieces of like the metal shielding, which will superheat, and that will like fly upwards towards Samus. Like it's such a cool detail.
Yeah.
Yeah, incredible fight.
And a nice cap off from Rundus rescuing you as well, which makes his upcoming boss fight a little bit tougher to deal with too.
Yes.
Okay, my number 5. I'm surprised you didn't have this on your list, so I'm going to keep it Metroid Prime 3, and we're going to talk about Gandreda. I think like the Gandreda fight is far and away the best Hunter boss fight. I think the music is like killer. I love that Gandreda kind of like keeps you on your toes with her different transformations. The one that obviously that sticks out is when she transforms into Samus herself. But I mean, like you get like little bits and pieces of like every other kind of hunter here, and more. I think like you have to do a really good job of like utilizing your skill set, utilizing your different visors to keep on top of her. She's lithe, she moves around a lot like a dancer. I think we all remember the attack where she jumps on you is like a very, it's almost like when a Metroid gets you actually. Like that's kind of the sensation that happens. I think the arena is really fun, and again, just like to put it into like another context as well, like just another one of those boss battles where you're like, God, I wish I could save you, but I can't. Like all I can do is, make your passing less less brutal than what it is. So I really like this fight, and I think it's like another, like I think a Metroid Prime 3 has like really, really great boss battles. Sometimes we don't talk about the boss battles enough in this game, but this one I think is really good. The only negative thing about it is like Samus kind of looks like a dolt for not realizing that this Marine that's been helping her out is in fact Gandreda. I think Mr. Magoo could have seen that plot twist coming, but nevertheless, I think this is a really awesome fight.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I definitely wouldn't put it this high, just because I think in terms of like boss mechanics, there's way more interesting boss fights out there. But like, yeah, in terms of like, again, the mechanics that you do get, the unique factors of the fight, and of course, the storytelling. Yeah, I think this is one of those boss fights that could absolutely make my top 10 list if I wrote this out on another day or put a little bit more thought into it, because yeah, I think when you look at the end of the Rundus fight, like, seeing what happens to Rundus, like, physically, it's just like, oh my god, that is a horrible way to go out. But with Gandreda, there's something, it's more psychological the way that it works instead. The
Yeah.
portion where she's like, she literally turns into you and she's screaming for help, and all Samus can do is just look away, like, it's heartbreaking.
It's sad, man. It's sad.
It's like it's genuinely like just such a really, another fantastic example of storytelling without any dialogue in Metroid. Like, it's all body language, and I think it's like all animated like so well, and again, incredibly effective. And then going to the fight itself, yeah, it's a really good fight. And you don't, even in Metroid Prime Hunters where you're fighting humanoids, you don't really you don't really get that sense of like a target being harder to hit than like something that's like 3 times your size. You definitely get that with Gandreda, just because of like her how she moves. She's very athletic and acrobatic, and she fully utilizes that. And so it gives you like a much different type of fight where you can't just spam beam shots, because only so many are going to hit. You have to really look for all these different openings. And then on top of that, because she's transforming into all these other things, you do get quite a bit of a diversity in her attack patterns. The only thing I don't even know if knock is the right word on the fight, but a lot of the things she transforms into are things that you've already fought, or the other hunters, for example. And so you'll get some like slight alterations to their attacks, but the attacks that she does are mostly the same, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think those are like really cool callbacks and makes sense for like her main ability. But I do wish, at least when she does transform into all the bosses and whatnot, I do wish that there were some attacks that were a little bit more unique on that front, whereas most of them really just come from her default form and her Samus form. That being said, though, still a fantastic fight.
I just think that like nobody moves quite like Gandreda. Like it's a very unique kind of. It's almost like when Dark Samus is doing like that little spin away from attacks when she breaks up. Like it's just like a very cool movement pattern that she has, which I think is represented well. Plus, like it just like kind of looks cool. Like she has this like neon pink kind of like trail to her, which I think like really kind of illuminates the battlefield over on Pirate Homeworld. So this one was one of the first ones I thought of actually when I was putting together my list. So Gandreda at number 5 for me. Okay, let's move on to number 4, Doom.
All right, number 4. It's the namesake. It's the it's the entire name of this list right here. Number 4.
Let me interject really quickly.
Yeah.
Because my number 4, I'm pretty sure, is your number 1. Should we go back to our number 4s in just a minute and maybe talk about number 3 instead? Because I think your number 4 is my number 1. So there, we're on some kind of sync here.
Let's hold that for now, because I definitely know that our number 1s aren't the same after our Echoes boss ranking. So we'll
definitely
put that in the back pocket.
Okay, skipping ahead. We'll get back to number 4s in a moment. So Doom, you give your number 3. You already know what my number 3 is. It's Omega Ridley from Metroid Prime 3.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, Meta Ridley from Metroid Prime 3. The Shaft Ridley fight.
Yeah. You're acting like the Metroid Prime 1 through 3 visual retrospective.
Yeah, I know. What am I doing here?
Well, I think we're about to cross paths again, Andy. I don't know if this is gonna work, but my number 3 is one that you're about to talk about anyways. It's Dark Samus 2 from the Sanctuary Fortress. Of all the Dark Samus fights, I think this is by far the best one. There really is no bad Dark Samus fight. All the Dark Samus fights are great, but Dark Samus 2 in particular, my goodness, like, to me, like, this is the epitome of, like, the Neo Agent Smith relationship between Samus and Dark Samus, and this fight just oozes all of that from start to finish. I love the introduction of the fight, where she just immediately gunslinger turns around and just starts rattling off shots, and then the fight itself, it just builds off all the mechanics that you established in Dark Samus 1, and just completely amplifies all the reusable attacks, brings in tons of new attacks, utilizes all of your different, there's, different beams that are optimal in specific scenarios. There's specific scenarios where you're not trying to attack, you're just trying to dodge Dark Samus, where she's boost balling you, or she's trying to ram you with her Phazon shield. And then, she'll turn invisible, so you got to use the Dark Visor to find her. Like, there's just all sorts of things happening. And I love how the whole first phase of that boss fight is just happening with this elevator going up all at the same time. It adds like a really unique set piece. When you get to the top, she does her iconic laugh, which I always love hearing. Dark Samus gotta have one of the best maniacal villain laughs out there. So cool. Yeah, again, this is just a perfect 10 out of 10 fight. No notes.
Yeah, I have Dark Samus, the elevator fight, as number 2 on my list for all the reasons you said. It's got that frantic energy I love. The Dark Samus boss theme, it's like so unbelievable. It's synthy, it's fast paced, it's energetic. It really adds to the fight. Yeah, like for everything you said, like going up is like a really cool kind of like arena for you to be on. When you get to the top and it opens up, it's a really cool setting, and it's got that preamble as well going up to it, so you know that you're about to get like into a really killer fight. I would even say like I didn't, but I probably could have made a case for Dark Samus 1 on this list too, like in Aegon Waste. Like that's another, I'm gonna steal the word, electric fight that you have. And like there's destruction going on there, so like I feel like there's some of that in this fight as well. So if all things were equal, I actually would have probably had 2 separate entries on my list, but I didn't. But yeah, I think it's just like it's a killer boss fight. Definitely the best Dark Samus boss fight I think that you have, and one that just like really sticks out. I think it's like definitively like the best boss fight in Metroid Prime 2. I know we disagree about that, but for me, like this is the peak of any of the boss fights that you fight in this game. It's just like it's really got everything you want, and what really puts it over the top for me is like it's that personal touch, like that personal adversary. Like it's not just like some monster. It's like it is a monster, but it's one that is very clearly connected to Samus herself. So yeah, that's my number 2. I don't know what you have for number 2 actually. I'm curious, and I guess that's where we are right now, isn't it?
I'm surprised. Yeah.
Well, let's go.
Yeah, that's right, because you already did your number 3. So yeah, I guess we're back at this again.
We're back at it again. It's your turn.
Yeah. So number 2, and I actually alluded to this earlier, so I'm surprised. Surprised, but maybe it won't be surprising once I say it. My number 2 pick is gonna be Emperor Ing from Metroid Prime 2 Echoes.
Really?
This
okay.
to me is this is just like one of the greatest final bosses of all time. I love it. And I know technically Dark Samus 3 is like the final boss, but I still count Emperor Ing is like the final. It's the actual like real fight. It's like a whole 3-phase fight. This is like one of my all-time favorite final bosses. If we were doing, if we're doing like a top 10 final boss ranking of all the Metroid games, not just Metroid Prime, I don't know if Emperor Ing makes number one because there's another really killer 2D boss called Ravenbeak that I'm thinking about, but yeah, they would be battling it out for number one. I absolutely adore this fight. Again, it's absolute perfection in all 3 phases that all utilize different aspects of Metroid Prime 2 to varying degrees. So in the first phase, you're largely the first phase is so claustrophobic, which I really love it when boss battles utilize it. It's one thing I actually forgot to mention about the Omega Pirate fight, how claustrophobic it feels with it constantly like walking into you and you trying to avoid the phazon puddles. And you get something very similar here with Emperor Ing as well, where you're just kind of surrounded by this toxic phazon surrounding all of the edge of the arena, and you have the tentacles that are constantly just trying to push you back, and so it's this fine balance by not getting pushed back too far, but also if you go too front, you're going to be vulnerable to attack. And so it's this very thin layer before you end up in no man's land. And I get, I think managing that is very satisfying once you get the hang of it. And then taking out, so once the tentacle phase, fairly easy, but taking out the weak point once it starts firing its eye laser is actually pretty challenging. It's a very narrow window, but I really enjoy the challenge. I like that, it's not just something you can wail and spam away on. You have to kind of anticipate where the weak point is going to spawn because it's always changing, because it's always changing directions where it's moving, and so you can't just constantly spam the sidestep in one direction. You kind of just have to anticipate when it's going to change in your path, and it's very satisfying when you really do nail that. And then in the second phase, and we were talking about this when we were going over the visual retrospective, but yeah, I love it when morph ball mechanics are implemented into Metroid boss battles, and I think phase 2 is another success story. And as Tanabe said, I have an even bigger appreciation for it now, with the awareness that, like, oh yeah, those small changes of the inglets and the rising toxic gas, it really does, elevate that section to another degree that probably would not give me that same satisfaction had those simple tweaks not been there. So I really enjoy that. And then the third phase, you get kind of your traditional, Samus versus, 10-foot high Goliath Titan. But this time, again, it's like extremely fast. It has a lot of difficult to dodge attacks. I especially really love when it does its lunging ground pound attack at you. There's moments where it's going to charge at you. Its weak points are typically on the front, but there's another very difficult weak point to hit on the back, which is very satisfying if you get that done. Yeah, this, again, like, a 3-phase boss fight is very typical, or very difficult to nail, and I'm really appreciative of this one in particular, just because of just how well, at least it is for me. I know we probably don't have the same opinions, but yeah, Emperor Ing is just an absolute delight and easily one of the highlights of Echoes for me.
I would not have Emperor Ing on my top 10 list. I will admit. I don't really think highly of this boss fight, actually, just because, like, number one, I feel like the first 2 phases are just, like, kind of okay. And I think it's just kind of like generic monster final boss, which, like, I think, like, kind of works, and obviously, as we'll talk about in Metroid Prime, but for this one, I think, like, you just have, like, Dark Samus, who to me feels like so much more interesting, that it's like the Ing is kind of like, yeah, but I mean, that's okay. Like, it is a fun boss fight, and, like, I think that there's, like, ways to use, like, the sunburst and I forget what the dark beam super missile is called, but, like, those could be kind of, like, fun during the boss fight. But I do have to admit, I would not have this on my top 10 list, and I don't know if it would be challenging for, like, best final boss on my Metroid list. Maybe that's an episode we need to do, actually. I'm sure it's actually probably an episode we've done, so maybe we need to revisit it.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, there's definitely been episodes looking back where we've accidentally redone episodes, completely oblivious that we've done them in the past. There's,
yes,
I think that,
which is fine because tastes change.
Yeah, spooky areas in Metroid for Halloween. That was actually one where I thought I had this brilliant idea, and then I totally forgot. We'd actually did that the year before.
We
But
missed our opportunity to do that again this year.
no one called us out on it though, so I consider that a success. So fun little lore for anyone listening.
Okay, so Doom, I think that we should go over our list because we're about to talk about our number ones, and we'll get out of here. So I'm going to really quickly recap mine with I'll skip number. Yeah, you know what? I'll just do number 4. So at number 10 for me was Silex. Number 9 was Gore. Number 8, the Omega Pirate. Number 7, Rundus. Number 6, the Spider Guardian. Number 5, Gandreda. Number 4, Quadraxis. Number 3, Omega Ridley. And number 2, Dark Samus 2 from Metroid Prime. Metroid Prime. God damn it, you're right. Meta Ridley, the Shaft fight, the Gandalf fight from. It's just so ingrained in me that like Ridley is Omega Ridley in Metroid Prime 3. I can see why they made the mistake. Number 2 is Dark Samus Returns, as we call it over on the Omega Metroid walkthrough.
All right, and then my 10, number 10 is Amorbus, Metroid Prime 2. Number 9, Rundus, Metroid Prime 3. Number 8, Omega Pirate, Metroid Prime. I'm not going to do the games. You know the games that they're from. Number 7, Chica. Number 6, Spider Guardian. Number 5, Meta Ridley. Number 4, Metroid Prime. Number 3, Dark Samus 2. And number 2, Emperor Ing.
There we go. So a lot of parallels in our list, actually, like a couple in the same spot, a couple of that were different, but like I think like noteworthy our number 4s are each other's number 1s. So let's talk about them. We don't like we've talked a lot about Quadraxis and Metroid Prime before, but let's give them their moment in the sun, starting with Quadraxis. I'll quickly, I guess, get us going because it was number 4 on my list, and I did want to say what I like about it before handing it over to you. The scale of this boss fight is incredible. I do like that it takes like it takes a lot to put this big monstrosity down, and I do love the way that it makes use of your echo visor. So I do appreciate that about Quadraxis. I think it's a little bit long. I will say a little bit long, but other than that, like I think it's a fantastic boss fight. I know that this is like your jam though, Doom, so I'll turn it over to you because I think a lot of what we'll have to say is probably the same thing.
Yeah, this is not my favorite Metroid boss. This is my favorite boss of all time. I adore Quadraxis. To me, like this is like just some of the best boss design like I've ever experienced in a game. I've really never had a boss fight that's quite like Quadraxis. You know, maybe I do need to play Shadow of the Colossus so I can get something kind of similar.
Dude, you 100% need to play that game. You would love it.
But yeah, just everything about this fight, like I love the way like it feels less of like a fight and more of just like the odds, even though the odds are in your favor when you know what you're doing, even still it feels so insurmountable because really it's less of like a traditional fight. It's like you are slowly dismembering and dismantling this giant robot, and when you think you've got it in the first phase, it's like actually no, that core in the head, that's still the main thing that you have to get to, and it's actually quite a process to do that. But then again, there's like so many like really cool time sinks and time saves and stuff. Like I feel like the fight, much like the Omega Pirate, it's a fun fight regardless if you're going into it and just trying to figure out the puzzle of it, but also a blast when you do know the puzzle and you know all of Echo's quirks and quick, there isn't really a quick kill opportunity, but there's shortcuts as I like to call them here, where you can one of the huge ones is in phase 2 when it does the antenna module. You're supposed to fire your beams at it, super missiles, like what have you, but it's actually a rare moment where you can use the screw attack in a combat form in this game, and you can one shot that antenna instantly, which will take its shielding down momentarily. So that's always really, and it's really difficult to pull off as well. You have to get on its leg just right so that you have enough vertical height to be able to reach it, because otherwise you're just gonna hit the base. But like once you do know how to like climb up like Quadrax's body and get that screw attack angle just right, super fun to just absolutely plow through that second phase. And then the first phase, I love that, and this is something that was talked about in the visual retrospective. I like that not all of its weak points are how you defeat the boss. I do really like how the glowing energy orbs are actually not a part of the process. That's like an optional thing you can do to either disable some of its ground pound attacks or just get some energy and health back. I will say, at least on easy mode, even without the orbs, I do think that there's a bit too much health given out during the fight. Like when I was playing it during the marathon, I wasn't really in. And granted, like I've played through Echo several times, so there's kind of no avoiding at that point. But I do wish I do wish that in the fight there might be a little bit less health and ammo drops. That's really my only one excruciatingly nitpicky critique of that fight. So as I do wish the challenge was maybe increased just a little bit. But yeah, otherwise just absolutely phenomenal. And then of course you cap it off with the incredible phase 3 where you're literally spider balling up the legs and boost balling onto the head module to finally take it out for good. You get a killer cutscene of Samus doing one of her awesome flips off the helmet, and a very rare moment where you actually get to see her using the jets on the back to do a safe landing. So that's always awesome. Yeah, this fight is peak cinema.
I think like the time where like, man, you're like clinging to the head, like the exposed head with like the spider tracks is like phenomenal. There's a lot of good things. Like I've said before, the fight is a little bit long for me. I wish that the last phase was a little bit more, because like you do wait for the head to come into position a little bit. So like maybe I would have tweaked that to be like a little bit more fast paced, but there's certainly nothing wrong with that. And the build up to that fight, just like seeing Quadraxis is just like such an intimidating, like, oh my God, like this is what I'm up against. Like it really is a spectacular fight, and like a really great like final boss for Sanctuary Fortress, which is one of the great areas in Metroid, arguably the greatest, right? Like so yeah.
Sorry, I actually just realized I put all 3 of the Temple Guardian fights on my top 10 list.
You did, nothing wrong with. I put all 3 Guardians or Hunters for Metroid Prime 3 on mine, so nothing wrong with that. Okay, well let's talk about Metroid Prime for Metroid Prime 1. That was my favorite boss fight, and again, I don't know if I'd say it's the best boss fight, but like I just like I feel like I love like the build up to it. You hear about the worm, you hear about the poison, you hear about the infection during the course of Metroid Prime, and you get to the impact crater, and it's building and building and building, and you finally see this being. It looks like this spider, and like this music starts, and I think the music adds so much to this boss fight. It's like such a pump up song. It's got like this music would make Frankenstein's monster raise up and start to get excited, and then like you actually see the fight, and it's this indomitable, intimidating creature, but like not different than Quadraxis, and like it's not as big, but it's like quicker and it's more dangerous because it can get you quickly, but it's still big enough. So I really like that. You have to use your entire toolkit, which I really love. And I think that like the added element of danger during the course of the fight, when you have to go in morph ball form in the divots, when you have to like when the thing latches onto you with that tracker beam, and you desperately got to get out of there before you could actually like breathe free, or else you take like a ton of damage. I really love that. The way that those like orbs kind of shoot at you, and then you're like, do I take them out or do I just go right for Metroid Prime? The way that it holds off on using the plasma beam for like a long time when you start that fight, because at this point in the game you've really become dependent on that really dependent on the plasma beam, but that one I really love. And then the second phase, of course, when you fight the core of Metroid Prime, and I'm kind of bundling these fights together, but I love the design of Metroid Prime. Yeah. I love the way that you enter like basically like hyper mode in that game, which is really cool as well. And it's just like this sense of finality and like big fight feel, and then like how at the end you kind of get the tease of like Metroid Prime lives on through your Phazon suit. I kind of kept on coming back, and I was like, should Dark Samus be number 1? Should Omega Ridley? Should Meta Ridley be number 1? And I kind of kept on coming back to like Metroid Prime. Metroid Prime is the one for me. And so again, a little bit more of a sentimental boss list, because I feel like everything else kind of spawns from Metroid Prime, but The fight itself, I think, is just like really awesome. So yeah, number one for me.
Yeah, Metroid Prime is fantastic, and there's so many aspects of the fight that I love. Like you mentioned, like the build up and anticipation. This is like peak Metroid build up right here. No pun intended.
Yeah.
But like yeah, but yeah, the build up to this fight is just absolutely impeccable. Like some of the best that I've seen in any Metroid game. And then the fight itself is just absolutely fantastic. It almost feels like a traditional 2D fight, but in a 3D space, because it, unlike the other fights which typically take place in like these round arenas, that at least that first phase, it's all these very narrow hallways that you could definitely see, like, taking place in a 2D game, but instead of but you also do get to move side by side, not just forward and backward. But those limitations make the scale feel even grander, and I think Retro does such a great job of taking advantage of that premise, because you still get the claustrophobic feel, but you also do get, like, it almost feels like Crocomire to a degree, where Crocomire, you're literally like it's a tug of war where you're both trying to push each other.
Yeah.
Whereas Metroid Prime, it's not quite the same, but you're trying to push it underground more to each layer, and so you do kind of get a similar sensation out of that. Like you mentioned, I love dodging with the morph ball into the divots when it does its ram attack. I especially love the final phase where it just surprises you and it does like 2 or 3 of them in a row. That's always something that I have to force myself to remember, because if you get caught off guard, like, it can really mess you up.
Yeah.
And I never even thought of like the plasma beam connection. But yeah, you're right. They really do hold off it turning red until, like, once you get
at
to
least
the third
halfway
phase.
through. Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is really cool. I really like that they do that at that point. It's a little bait and switch there.
Yeah.
I have nothing. Oh, and of course, I have to mention, and I feel like I mentioned this in so many podcasts, but my goodness, the new running animation in Metroid Prime
totally.
Remastered. The new running animation,
dude,
is
when
like
Samus runs and flips is so good. So
legit
good.
One of my favorite things about the remaster. That is such a good running animation. I hype myself up every single time I see it. I'm excited now, because I know that, like, next time I play Metroid Prime, once we get off the podcast, I'm going to be fighting that boss, and I know I'm going to be seeing that. And that just excites me, just thinking about that running animation. I love it.
It's so killer. Yeah.
Where it falls for me, though, is that second phase where when we initially did our Metroid Prime ranking, I ranked the second phase pretty low. I will say nowadays, after having played Metroid Prime a lot more, I definitely don't rank it as low. I think it's still good, but definitely
it's not like, as good as the first phase. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. It's kind of like Meta Ridley in the sense for me, where it's like everything is perfect except for the fight itself. Obviously, I think this fight is better than the Meta Ridley fight, substantially so even. But yeah, it still does have, it still has the incredible music. It still has, like, the sense of finality. Like, when you get to that second phase, like, this is it. This is where it all happens. Optimus Prime and Megatron, one shall stand, one shall fall, and, like, you really do get that sense of finality there, which I like. Hyper mode looks really sick on the arm cannon. Like, it really does look like the cannon is just getting corrupted in real time. I do like being that it utilizes both of the visors. The previous fight is utilizing all your beams. This fight kind of does the inverse, where you're utilizing all of your visors. So I think that's really cool. I wish there was just a little bit more going on in that second fight, because really all you're doing, you're just kind of waiting for Metroid Prime to do its same attack over and over again before it spawns a phase-on pool so you can damage it. You rinse and repeat. And I think overall it's still satisfying because of that atmosphere, but in terms of the actual mechanics, I wish there was just a little bit more going on. That's what brings it down to number 4, but again, as a whole, I would still, in spite of that, give this fight a 10 out of 10, because it's such a satisfying conclusion to this game.
Yeah, man, nothing wrong with that. Okay, there it is, the top 10 bosses in the Metroid Prime quadology. I don't know. Quad is 4. I have no idea. Quintology, whatever it's called. So there you go. Some honorable mention for Federation Force, and we did sneak a Hunter's boss in on the list as well. So I think that we'll have to revisit this once Metroid Prime 4 comes out, because I have a feeling that there's going to be a boss or two from that game that maybe makes its way onto our list here. So we'll have to see. All right. Anything else before we get out of here, Doom?
No, I think I said everything I need to said, and you're absolutely right. So first off, when after Prime 4 comes out, we'll definitely be doing a boss ranking of that game specifically.
Totally.
But I definitely think our Metroid Prime Saga boss ranking is probably going to need a revisit after that game. I have a feeling there's going to be some certified bangers in there.
Yeah, I have a feeling that you are absolutely right. So, all right, everybody. Well, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for checking us out. And, of course, listen to the beginning of the episode. We got a lot of Metroid Prime 4 content planned for the next couple of months here. So keep it locked in to the Omega Metroid podcast. Hey, check us out wherever you get your podcasts. Go like and subscribe and recommend, rate, review, all that kind of good stuff. If you got a Metroid fan in your life, tell them where they can get their weekly Metroid Fix. We are doing this podcast every single week. Every Wednesday, new episodes drop, so go ahead and check it out. Check us out over on Blue Sky. Give us a follow at Omega Metroid, at Spateria316, at Doom Cross. And of course, that'll lead you right to OmegaMetroid.com, where you can come and get the latest Metroid news, latest Metroid guides, maps, walkthroughs, thought pieces, everything that you could shake a stick at if you are a Metroid fan. Plus, a link to our YouTube page where, hey, we have full video guides. We have these podcasts there in full video form if you want to take a look at them. See our faces as we do these shows as well. So go ahead and check that out. And then lastly, if you want to take your Omega Metroid love to the next level, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/SPNet. The new bonus shows. Goo and I just recorded a new episode of Gooey Plays Metroid. So we're in the home stretch of him playing Nestroid for the very first time. So we're going to be recording next month as he takes on Mother Brain and answers fan questions and was making his own map. So lots of fun to be had there. $4 gets you in the door. And if you want even more stuff, there's a bunch of Zelda stuff, a bunch of movie stuff, honestly, a bunch of random stuff there as well, like wrestling, comics. It's all there over at patreon.com/SPNet, including Middle Earth, the podcast as well. So go and check that out. That's going to do it for us, my friends. We're going to dip out of here, but until next time, we'll see you then. Take care.